Hello. This is part 2 of this anime with a long name. The first part is here, if you care. Subscribe, or I'll live in your walls and try and eat baked beans in your bed when you're not looking. Okay, video time. A deluge of rain signals impending disaster. Princess Phallus is probably about to be politically wed, or something like that. Meanwhile, Al introduces Rory to the purple counter people, and Helen feels romantically threatened. Al is just relieved that there was no violence, though. Back on the farm, a horrible little aubergine filching cretin is apprehended and scolded for desecrating the fields as Al mourns his fallen angels. The boy gurgles in response, and is given an insectoid brain instead, which awakens an ancient power sleeping within him. Al recalls the visage of a desiccated gnome briefly. It's quite tragic. Helen picks up on the mood and explains how monster raids have been especially prevalent as of late, so some of the smaller villages have been stretched thin for resources. Suddenly, the sound of a warning bell indicates that a swarm of evil has descended upon them. It certainly looks pretty dire. Helen explodes some wicked manifestations into nuggets as Rupee zoops around a particularly large worm. Al messes around with his hoe while the adventurers aid the city knights. Though their defense is admirable, the flow of monsters resembles that of a school of salmon effusing upstream, threatening to overwhelm the champions. But lo, the churning of the tide breaks to the crackling of hooves. The Prince of Antisberg, wielding the sacred sword Levitain, commands the monsters to disperse, lest they be mired in holy flame and return to dust. This is pretty effective and straight up solves the problem. Later, Al is caught in 4K rubbing his equipment by Phallus, who came to say goodbye. So yeah, she's getting married to that sword guy for the good of the kingdom and won't be coming back. It's time. Al attempts to tarry by pathetically stumbling his words, but Phal peels out all sad-like. Since that day, the monsters ceased their harassment and things returned to normal, excepting that there is no more Phal. The veg thief and his mother arrive to apologize, but Al was unfazed before and unfazed now. He gets a free coupon to their clothing store in exchange for some potatoes. Reeks has arrived to deliver while no one was looking and begins discussing the ebbs and flows of the economy. Al's extended monologue on the situation and Reeks' remarks confirm again that the King of Annisberg is a commanding officer of the Brigandine of Sus. The news has news. Meanwhile, Rory is fed some of Helga's sandwiches and discovers alongside Hellergy that Princess Falco is getting married. It's just a marriage of convenience because of that magic sword, though. Rory mentions that in general, monsters shouldn't understand human speech at all, so it was strange that they listened so obediently to the sacred sword's wielder. Suddenly, Al arrives to confirm the news and show them the letter he just received from his mother. Setting aside the first few pages of love poems, his mother went out of her way to investigate the influx of monsters and ended up doing some digging into the sacred sword. It doesn't work. It's a fake. Or it was never special to begin with. Kasan's info is always perfect, after all. She used to be the commander of the Shadow Puppets, an elite intelligence unit capable of gathering any information, no matter how lock and key. Anyway, following that sudden bombshell, Lucicia wrote about a demon whose lover was kidnapped by the Prince of Antisberg. That same prince is using that demon to control the monsters, so he can wed our lovely princess. Al wants to go save Phallus, but doesn't realize through his zeal that he should technically not know her. He bluffs super hard and lands a saving throw, convincing the girls to help with his plan. Reeks says hello and has an idea or several. After we do a sick ramp across the ramparts of Antagonistberg, Prince Nettlus gleefully rakes in 4,375 USD, 59 cows, 4 vases, 7 wives, 3 trade deals, and 1 llama from all the desperate countries trying to make use of the power of the sacred sword. This demon here is beginning to feel withered by the flagrant abuse of his powers. He just wants peace, but the greed of man slaps him across the room and reminds him that his human babe's life is dangling by a piece of used scotch tape. Suddenly, Phal emerges in fury at Nettlus for abusing his servant. He is unremorseful and delicately smooths things over, but goes nuts on a guard who rushed in to tell him that his carriage is delayed. Phal is not too enthused and really doesn't want to drink anything poured by this dauntless sycophant. There goes a bird. Al redeems his clothes voucher to acquire spy gear, and Reeks gets a confirmation that they'll enter Antisburg before the ceremony. Once they get inside, Reeks will go grab some monsters to publicly prove that the sword is fake. When that happens, the engagement will probably be called off, and the ceremony will be cancelled.
But where will he get the monsters?
Says Helen. Reeks is a demon. This makes sense. He goes on a tirade about demons and humans actually coexisting for a while now. This includes himself. This particular situation is relevant to his interest in socio-political issues, and Al inspires them all before heading out. Later, Fal is sulking by moonlight, not resolved to be married so abruptly, and whispers Al's name into the void. Ned catches that whisper with his big snooping Dumbo ears, though. Prince Nettles feverishly jerks off his god complex while strolling gleefully to his bride-to-be. She is going with the pink rose wedding build, and remains just as thorny as her get-up might imply. Fal recalls being lied to by her dad, who was pretty sure she could marry whomever she wanted to at the time. Meanwhile, the Al pals invade. I still don't really know why they have to sneak into the city if this is a massive event bearing host to people from all over. Either way, they're surprised at how easy it was to get in, and disguised as farmers, entering the castle itself will be a sitch. The girls are concerned. However, Al has been a farmer for so long, he'll be able to fool anyone easily. The plan is to swiftly rescue the demon's sweetheart, get her to the church, then unveil nepotist's schemes. Al is immediately arrested, but insists that he came to deliver vegetables to the palace. He fails the deception check, inciting a lengthy chase followed by Helen using him as a test case for rudimentary flight. Helen was precisely on the mark, and despite his bold entry, Al finds the sweetheart. Suddenly, guards arrive to inspect the clamor. Al was prepared, however, equips his ample supply of ammunition, shouts his profession aloud, and elegant as the first rain of spring, supplies the forest of soldiers with the gifts of the earth. The lady is informed of her boyfriend's situation, and eagerly agrees to help, not that she has much of a choice after seeing what just happened anyway. It seems she is attached to a girthy olive though. Regardless, and despite more efficient solutions existing probably, our ragtag gang of infiltrators scurry onward to the church, leading up with Alcoon along the way. That's a church, alright. The ladies figure they'll hold off the entire royal guard in the meantime, while Reeks hypes himself up. King Aegis tries to get Fal to back down from the marriage at the last moment, but she is dead set on sacrificing herself for her kingdom. The girls make the informed decision to strategically flee as Fal agrees to her marriage. Nettles monologues before trying to lip her on the lips, and is obliterated by a supersonic door. He apologizes for busting up the building and being kind of late, but it's all good. Ned points his big finger at him in retaliation. However, Navels is the villain here, and Larvetan is a fake sword. The crowd mutters in confusion, and Nettles menacingly defends his precious relic. King Legos insists that Al stop goofing, so he starts gaffing instead. Reeks has unleashed the ranks of hell onto the city with his cool flute though. I guess this is okay. Maybe. Hopefully. As long as Reeks told the monsters not to murder or pillage. Meanwhile, the demon and lady are having a lovely reunion in the background. Go on, Nettlesus, to touch the blade. Your people need you, your highness. Al strokes it instead, insults the sword, then chucks it at a beetle, who gobbles Levitain up. Ned Ismius's lies are laid bare for all to see, and he giggles like Kira. Last night, he sent in a swarm of goobers to Magus unprompted. Suddenly, the girls barge in to insist that everyone believe in the power of Magus' people. They're out there popping cooldowns in the field, while the king uses his water magic in thanks. Anyway, there's a coup. Nettles goes feral. Al prevents another regicide. Fal proclaims her love for Albert, then Brewery civilly disagrees. Al turns to King Mages for help, but his father-in-law simply welcomes him to the family. While festivities proceed, Reeks sneaks up on the king to hand him a sinister mystery letter that essentially implies Nedelius was being controlled. There's an ominous pan away, and everything goes back to normal, more or less. Al's workload has increased, and Phallus has decided to don the Adventurer Guild in a lavish display of wealth. Fal returns undercover a second later to butt heads with Ruri over Al's affections, frightening him off with her growling. That's a nice tomato. The ladies fervently wish to know his desire for them, but he is asexual and only confuses them. After returning from his harvest, Al places a sacrifice to a shrine of the pink-haired girl from his memories, named Ilvia. 15 years ago, at Al's old village, he harvested the country's his GDP in potatoes and offers a few to the neighbors. Suddenly, a vegetable thief is captured along the road. Al's never seen a criminal before and learns that she's likely a starving orphan. Once she's caught, she'll be sold into slavery. Instead, she breaks free and makes off with the taters. Al doesn't wish for this poor creature to suffer, so follows her to the forest with some soup. It isn't super optimal to eat potatoes raw like that. Ilvia hasn't experienced soup before. The next day, she gets to have an omelette and eventually emerges from the foliage to eat alongside Al, complimenting the tomatoes that sequester themselves within her sandwich. Al reassures her that his vegetables are of the highest quality. His father always says that a farmer's joy is knowing that there are people savoring their produce with a smile. They introduce each other and Al hungers. Ilvia can't ignore his voracious rumbling and figures they should share the sandwich. She is snatched, however. Time to be a slave, I guess. Al pleads for mercy, promising to return what Ilviard owes in potatoes. This is reasonable, but unnecessary, as the Tosan arrives at the scene with an enormous bag of rice. That'll do it, although Lucicia might put him directly into the 9th circle of hell for buying a child with rice. After being freed, Ilvia feels somewhat guilty about her potato thieving, so returns them. She was just bailed out of life of indentured servitude, so a bit of produce is no big deal in comparison, and Al tells her that they're siblings now. Ilvia is vaporized by a time wizard and converted to a PNG. A couple of years later, Al is attempting to solo the farming run at the displeasure of Ilvia when Testicles is attacked by a swarm of bees. Kasan explodes them though, no sweat, and tells everyone that they'll be moving to the capital soon, so she and Papa will be out house hunting for a while. Ilvia's expression doesn't resemble excitement. Anyway, Testa found a treasure map and wants to go on a wild and wacky adventure in search of jewels. Having just been told to take care of the house and land, Al agrees, insisting that Ilvia stay at home due to the dangers of exploration. She isn't pleased by this. Later, Al complains about her over-attachment to him, but Testard mentions that everyone else just bullies her. Somehow Al hadn't noticed this at all over the past couple of years, and realizes that they're moving to the capital for Ilvia's sake, probably. That lowered morale slightly, but the adventure continues by falling into the ruins of an ancient civilization. They find a cuneiform tablet with some archaic scribblings, touch it, then are sent to this fella's embryonic chrysalis. It isn't too thrilled about having visitors and causes the local volcano to erupt in response. A while later, Ilvia wakes Al up, but he has a throbbing pain in his chest, and the world is sepia now. So there was a volcanic winter, and everything they loved was destroyed. The most pressing thing being that the bridge is all busted and they can't easily ford the river to get help from the capital. It seems fairly dire, so Al checks on the fields. No good. He has a heart attack. This is reasonable. Al never wanted Ilvia to go hungry again, but she's just glad he is still around. That night, Ilvia returns to her thieving ways, but remembers what transpired last time and stops herself. Instead, she gives her portion of breakfast giblets to Al, lying about the state of affairs in the village as he recovers. She sparkles at him, but she can't keep juicing a brother and not herself. Eventually, Ilvia collapses, tragically starving to death, alone in the ash. Al is horribly distraught, believing the situation to have been under control until now. The shock of losing his little sister left a hole in his heart that only vegetables can fill. Anyway, time to get back to farming. Al obliterates another dragon and finds an unconscious forest lady, so takes her to his house. The next day, she asks where and why she is, believing that Al kidnapped her. Despite it happening a lot to him, finding random women in distress doesn't occur that often, and he insists that he was only concerned for her safety. Anyway, she was headed to the Adventurers Guild, so Al offers to escort her after breakfast, introducing himself as Al Wayne. This is Linnea Magnil, and I didn't do this awkward zoom. Rory enters Al's house, finding a strange woman wearing his clothes and apologizing for getting his bed dirty. She flees. Later, Linnea attempts to explain her request, but this mostly boils down to things be thinging strange around these parts, so the guild can't really accept without more detail. Al recalls Linnea's desperation to get into the city though, and agrees to help without hearing anything else. Lindenberg states that the troubles trouble Goldtown specifically. Al is slain. They have asparagus there. He manages to froth out of his mouth a variety of other praises about the crop, and thanks Linnea for gracing his presence. Helen insists that Al is actually pretty reliable, and Linguini is given some suitable clothes. She hopes that Al isn't a perv lord waiting to take control of her weakness, and holds his hand. Al is startled by her approach, but continues along to Goldtown as Rory watches from the shadows. On the road there, Al laments struggling to find an active carriage route, but there are strange strange things thinging around Goldtown right now, so trade is slow. Suddenly, an orcish ambush, and not just one. Al apologizes for the inconvenience and passes out. After waking up, he notices that this woman iced him out while he dozed. It has a calming effect though, so it's probably just fantasy Xanax.
That other fella be whispering sweet nothings in your ears as ye slept.
Snitches the wagon master. Al makes this face. So this is Goldtown? Al is a guest of Linnea though, and they're let through. Why mops? Al immediately orders some skewers, discussing the rumors of weirdness in town as he does so. He receives no immediate linguistic evidence of things thinging, but a thing things right in front of him. The kebab salesman has a brain hemorrhage a moment later. It ain't right here. This man Fint leans his wheelbarrow into the street, scattering his veg across the ground. Al investigates, but the lad is zonked out so far into space that a single touch causes him to orgasm. That ain't right. Al is stolen, mistaken for luggage by strippers in disguise, most likely. Anyway, Linnea shows Al her family's jewelry shop, tells him more about the Xanax magic, and gives him a couple extra. Seems like it prevents the strange from spreading to them, which is nice. Speaking of which, where are her parents? They just disappeared. The lack of information on this case is suspicious, as Liner stutters. Later, the crackheads are out on patrol today. It's the Lord of Goldtown, Lanuru Horn. Al is honored, but lo, they share matching jewelry. Fascinating. Al is invited to dine at the Lord's mansion and is mistaken for luggage again. Lemuro is a suspicious suspect. Linnea reflects on this, but Al ignores her anxiety. She isn't sure about his laissez-faire attitude, but he's too confident and stupid to argue against. Later, the only lighting in the house is Lumiere's disabled cousin. Only decorations, asparagus related, and only food, asparagus. Al immediately questions the Lord about things thinging, but is arrested. He has no intention of being restrained, breaks free, then goes for the kill. Linnea betrays his trust as the knife which pierced Caesar twists. The plan continues. All of humanity will be subjected by demons, of course. It's Vritra, a demon of high ranking, who can take possession over human consciousness. As is customary, Vritra reveals his evil scheme to exponentiate his power by fusing with this crystal and embedding it into a historic landmark. After the minds of Goldtown's citizens were harnessed for demonkind, the next target was to be the royal capital, but rumor of a powerful human hero had traveled quickly in the underworld. If Vitriol could instead possess the body of this strong warrior, his esteem amongst demons would rise significantly. Al's like, Linnea apologizes fervently because her family was taken hostage, but Al seems keen on becoming part of a crystal. Linnea looks away dramatically, having flashbacks of her precious time spent with Al, and tells him to run, but it's too late. Too late for Fritter, and Al signals for the annihilation of the demon's sinister catalyst. Al knew that Linnea was a traitor thanks to his friends, who were investigating separately out of worry that he'd be duped by another pretty girl. They were right, but Linnea's extra pendants came in handy there, directly leading to the rescuing of her parents. Vitra asserts that he still has a hostage though, Lord Horn. This infuriates Al, who holds a deep respect for asparagus and knows that the Lord does so too. He feeds a handful of that gussy into Lenuru's very willing and eager maw, proclaiming that the love of the homegrown, refreshing sweetness and deep, rich flavor should beckon him back from the demon's evil command if it be true. This is effective, and Vritra is promptly ejected from the castle. The next day, Linus gives Al the equipable Xanax, along with a kiss on the cheek, and the promise that she'll hunt him down sexually when she comes of age. Al puts his Tesla into autopilot, departs, then dies, as Linnea promises to be more lippy with her kisses next time. Al is flourishing in his natural habitat, alongside the hoes, who have nothing else to do, I guess. Phallus is jealous of the fresh Xannies the other two acquired from Al, and reflects on her lack of progress wooing him. His autism seems to have the side effect of attracting lots of babes, which complicates things quite a lot for the girls. Suddenly, Al screams. The homies come running for fear of an ambush, but it's just weeds. Al shoots beams of rage from his eyes in a blind fury, reminding his ladies that they're fighting an uphill battle in the rain for his affection. Later, they make 27 cents from a sale, and Jake arrives to purchase, reminding us that he, Luke, and Lamia still exist. Not long after, the king himself shows up to procure a couple of radishes and asks when Al will be joining the family. Al fumbles his response, but King Meiji promises to to tack on extra land and new tools to the marriage deal. This is critically effective, and the allure nearly sets the hook. Rory is quick to notice, though, latching on to Al and provoking the ire of Phallus, who ejects a potato at her. Raleigh gracefully dodges, however, allowing the projectile to smoothly enter through Al's frontal cortex and exit out the occipital lobe. While dead, God tries to tell him something incredibly important, but can't stay corporeal long enough to get the message across. The king is glad to see Al still alive, then figures he should head out. After selling the vegetables for the day, the girls are thanked for helping, and Al goes to buy some weed killer with the profits. Following that, Reeks encounters Al being inauspicious in the road, then witnesses a broad daylight kidnapping. That's 2 for 2 so far. Al has no patience for public molestation, calmly intervening. The slavers don't respect his discretion and are immediately slain or routed. It's a demon child, Yuria-sama. Reeks introduces her as the daughter of the previous demon king. Why is Reeks so calm about suddenly finding a demon princess all the way in human territory? He reassures Yuria that Al isn't a pervert, and she resolutely asks Al to save the demon race. Al is confused, of course, so rightfully asks for more information. Yuria's butler declared her to not be safe in the castle and warped her out. This doesn't elucidate things at all, but Al accepts the quest, even though Demon Land is a few days' travel across the ocean. In exchange for helping demonkind, Reeks is to do battle with the pesky weeds in Al's place. All is settled, so Al sprints across the sea with Yuria in hand. She is disheveled, but thankful for the haste. Her use of the informal, affectionate Oni-chan flares Al's PTSD, and her butler Volpe Doma arrives. He says nothing, looks at them, then strikes. Al manages to fend off his fierce purple magic, discerns that Vape is after Yuria, then figures someone is probably controlling him. Al has improved at combat since last time he faced a demon, and makes quick work of Voldemort, much to the shock of Yuria, who is sure that Lupe was kind and gentle. Vopal isn't nearly finished just yet, though, charging up a big one from stealth. Suddenly, Lucicia incapacitates him. She heard the story from Reeks and figured she'd help her reckless spawn out. Lucicia introduces herself, but Yuria is horrified. Anyway, Al was startled by the sheer magical power of Yuria's attendant, and they discuss him briefly. Volpe is the most powerful mage in the demon realm, and has an unhealthy obsession with the princess. Al figures they should leave him face down. Lucicia agrees, then they head off. At the demon castle, everyone lies slain, including Yuria's father. He was just unconscious, and same for this guy, who Al interrogates. It was Lucicia going nuts. She takes a swipe at Yuria-sama, is stopped by Al, then told she isn't his mother. If she were, Al would have had several broken bones upon saying hello. Lucicia Sasuga's her Oni-chan, then transforms into Ilvia. She twirls as the Stigmata's revelation takes hold on Al, proclaiming that the power of the great evil god is what made her this way. Ilvia conjures an orb and attacks Urls, annihilating everything behind the castle as a result. In a world like this, she could easily destroy everything, but Al could keep up, even though the power of the evil god is sealed. His one who loves nature skill was given to him by the evil god. Big twist. Plus, he's apparently already met the fella. Ilvia promises to tell him more if he just joined the dark side. Al is really tempted by this, maybe because of Ilvia's sparkly eyeball, but Yuria interposes herself. She is obliterated at the speed of sound. Never mind, Ilvia was just mad that Yuria was calling Al Oni-chan. She force pushes Al to the floor and promises to spare his loved ones if he teams up with her. Yuri struggles, insisting that Al flee, but only realistically provokes Ilvia, who readies the guillotine. Al's necklace decides to start glowing and freezes time. This is pretty handy and quite confusing, but God was just waiting for an appropriately dramatic time to say hello. It's the good God, who'd hacked into the mainframe and reprogrammed Al's swag to mend space-time to facilitate their meeting. That being said, she doesn't have long, so sucks out the evil god's power, replacing it with her own. Although incomplete still, Al should be able to fend off Ilvia at least. Gigi will even rewind time a little bit so he can help Yuria easier. Al unleashes his new ability, emitting an absolutely devastating eruption of weeds. Ilvia simply breaks free though. She decides that summoning a knife would be more prudent than her all-powerful destruction magic. This was a terrible move because her sword can't even cut through Al's pathetic plants, and she ends up entangled and unable to move. Suddenly, Volpe emerges from the front door and immediately casts Fireball. There's a brief demonic reunion, but Ilvia is predictably resilient, surviving the blast easily and sending Volgier across the room. Al is easily outmaneuvered, and Coldplay faces certain death. However, Al stops Olivia with a command. She states she's bored now. It's a shame her outfit is ruined, that Al and her should meet up again, then vanishes into a circle. Volpe is pissed, but the Demon King swings in Al's corner with the fact that he literally just saved the whole kingdom. Volpe can't be mad. Anyway, the king knows absolutely nothing, tells Al that the books they owned on the evil god were expunged, then insists that if they find anything out, he'll send an email or text. Yuria is saddened that Al will be leaving so soon, but Volpe couldn't be more elated. Believing that Al has seduced his lolly, Al ponders what Ilvia could possibly be, while wistfully looking up into the sky, which transitions smoothly to the capital, where Fal is preparing to sneak out again. Her maid contorts the most shady smile imaginable as the princess departs. Meanwhile, Al reflects on his discussion of the evil god with Ilvia, recalling when he and his strictly platonic friend Testa found that inoculated hermit living in those ancient ruins. Maybe Testa will know something, so he goes to ask. Testa doesn't, though it would be cool if he did. Then they eat tomatoes. Al suggests that he visit the capital sometime, but after leaving, Testicles cryptically and melancholically says that he is bound to the village. On the way back, Al is accosted by another orc, unable to best it despite his strength, then saved again by the lads. Lamia and I find it odd that he still can't handle the wildlife, but Al definitely felt that, so he tells Helen and Ruri. It's possibly because he did some heretical god flipping a few days ago, so his stuff is messed up. Helen checks him out. Yep, pretty much. He lost that evil god skill that boosts his power by 10 times, realizes this, then figures he'll keep that a secret. Regardless, Al is still quadruple the strength of a seasoned adventurer, so will likely be fine. Suddenly, Reeks arrives to deliver another letter from Mom, after the usual poems. She threatens Helen and Ruri, then tells Al she is still investigating. Reeks bumps into Fal on the way out, and she makes her way in to flirt. The others flirt too. I guess Luke flirts, but is frightened into submission by the ladies. While they party, Al asks himself questions about why Ilvia was alive, who she is, what the evil god is, and where the plot is going. But he knows who his friends are, and that he likes farming, so as a farmer, Al Wayne will grow lots of vegetables. And that's the end of I've somehow gotten stronger when I improved my farm-related skills. Hello. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, help it out by interacting with the platform, such as liking, commenting, or subscribing. If you didn't enjoy, you can't catch me scurrying through your walls once I'm coated in baby oil. Donating to my Patreon will probably get me to stop eating the insulation, though. Okay, thanks again.